ahead and get started. So if you have any questions or anything while I'm talking, you can go ahead and post them in the chat. There's also a feature where you can raise your hand. So tonight I'm going to be talking about compliance versus mastery when learning, not doing is the academic goal. The last few years, at this point, we're now in the second full year of trying to teach in a pandemic. And so what was the initial focus was just getting them back to school and at least getting them doing things on a consistent. As we're trying to move back to quote unquote normal, what we want to focus on is mastery. YMLA is a college readiness campus. So the idea is that every single thing that we're doing on the campus for the boys is designed to get them ready for post-secondary education and to be successful in post-secondary education. And so that comes with mastery of concept and skills and not just compliance of doing things. So compliance and mastery are two sides of the same coin. So if you look at it from a teacher's perspective, mastery is the demonstration of skill and knowledge. So basically, what do they actually know? Schools often refer to standards of academic achievement as their rubric for mastery. And so things that we use here at the Young Men's Leadership Academy and in Texas and in SAISD is we use the MAP test. So that tells us the student's lexile level and specific skills. And I'll say for like reading, it tells us what their fluency level is, whether or not they understand author's purpose, whether or not they understand evidence. That's the SAT and the ACT. Those are both college readiness tests that tell colleges and universities how well their student is predicted to do. We use grades. We use the STAR test is a really big one here in Texas. And that ranges from levels. So do not meet is a student that is struggling with grade level concepts and is going to need some deep intervention the following year. Approaches is a student is slightly below grade level and needs, is still going to need intervention. Meets means that that student is on grade level. All of the things that they were supposed to learn in whatever grade they're in, they're doing fine. And then masters is a student that indicates that they are going to be successful in post-secondary education. The other side is compliance. So to act to an order, a set of rules or requests. School administrators might think of federal and state regulations or various HR requirements they must follow. So compliance for a teacher may look like the student is in the classroom, the student turned it in. The quality of it is not considered. And whether or not it met the standards or the requirements is not considered. It's simply, do I have something tangible that I can look at and say the student did something? So this is what it might look like. I like to compare things to sports. One of my favorite things to use is analogies. So, and track season just ended. I have a son that runs track. And so I like to compare it to sports. So compliance for a track athlete may just look like coming to track practice, right? You're there. It may look like during the warm up, you're walking, the student is walking around the track, you know, not particularly fast, not really pushing themselves and maybe not doing the stretching part of it, but at least they walked around the track. It may look like doing some or parts of the assigned workout. So if the workout is to run a 500 and walk a 300, they may run 400 meters and then go get some water and sit down for 10 minutes. Compliance may look like running one of the assigned races at mid speed. So a lot of students run several races. They'll run a 100 meter, the 4x200 relay, and they might do long jump. And the athlete may say, okay, well, I'm just going to do the 100 meter race today, you know, and get whatever points I get from that. And I'm not really going to run my fastest, but at least I came to the track meet and at least I'm here and at least I did something. But what does mastery look like? Because of all of those things of compliance, yes, they did the things and they were present. But is that going to turn them into a star athlete? Is that going to help them build their strength? Is doing those things actually going to make them faster or show any improvement in their time? But what would mastery look like as an athlete? So they're choosing to run track. This is something that they're doing in schoolwork. Obviously, it's not really a choice. You have to come to school every day. But what would that look like as mastery? It's coming to track practice with the appropriate gear and shoes with the water bottle. So they have on tights, they have on a t-shirt, they have on their running shoes or their spikes, and they have a water bottle. So they are ready for the day. What does that look like in class? Showing up with the fully charged device, showing up with the assignments completed, showing up in the correct uniform with your purple polo and your black belt and your khakis and your all black shoes. Mastery would look like completing the warm-up in the requisite time and doing a full stretch. So instead of just casually walking around the track, the coach says, hey, I want you to do this warm-up lap in 5 minutes, and I want you to do this stretches, and they get it done in 5 minutes, and they do all of the stretches because they know that that's going to help their muscles. Mastery looks like doing all of the assigned workouts and improving on their personal best. So the goal is to run 500 meters and then walk 300 for a rest, run 600 meters and walk 200 for a rest. And the student does all of those things. In between time, they may be taking a water break, they may be doing some stretches. Let's say they get a cramp in their leg. My son had knee surgery, so his body is adjusting. He's getting cramps in his legs. He's getting shin splints. That would mean going to the trainer and saying, hey, my shins really hurt. What can I do? Which would be the equivalent of coming to tutoring, asking for help in class, asking a peer. And then improving on those times. Mastery would look like running all of the assigned races at the top speed. So if we're supposed to be reading an article and finding all of the arguments in an argumentative essay, that would look like reading the text, annotating the text, highlighting the evidence in the text, turning and talking to a peer and saying, well, what are the arguments that you found? Writing all of the arguments down, participating in the discussion, and asking questions. Right? What questions do we have so far?
No questions here, Ms. Carpenter.
Okay. No questions. So there's a difference between compliance and mastery. Unfortunately, we've been leading more towards compliance, and it's the idea of like, well, at least they.
Yep.
But when that happens, there's no growth. And so there's a lot of things that factor into at least they, and it's very subjective. So factoring effort into the grade sends the wrong message to students because how much effort is considered enough effort to be a grade? What is effort defined by? I know that I have pretty high expectations. So to me, effort, right now I'm covering for the English teacher. To me, effort is writing a 3-sentence response to the article they were supposed to read. Someone might say, well, at least they did a sentence. Effort is difficult to measure. A student that does very well may not have put forth any effort versus someone that put forth a lot of effort and still did it incorrectly. Participation is a really tricky one for me because a lot of that can be personality based. Is it fair to punish a student that is very quiet versus the student that's constantly rewarding the student that's constantly raising their hand? They may not like that. Some students prefer to work independently and do really well. Some students like to work in a group. Positive attitude is difficult to define and can be faked. And not only that, positive attitude can be impacted by simply what's going on in your life. Today, they may not feel like being gregarious and loquacious and smiling and grinning and laughing and playing. That may not be their mood today. And that may be why they're struggling with work. They're thinking about things, they're going through things. And so to give them a grade based on my perception of what their attitude is does not seem fair to the student. And compliance grades give no indication of student mastery. Often in the beginning of the school year, and I'm guilty of this as well, is you kind of want to give them a boost and make them feel good. So you'll give grades like turning in a syllabus, 100, participation week 1, 100, class discussion, 100. And so they have all these 100s, everybody's feeling great. And then they do their first written response and they get a 50. And now everybody's shocked and surprised. Well, he had 100, what happened? But he had 100 on things that he did, not 100 demonstrating his level of mastery on the skills that were taught. Now, the good thing about grades is that they are not static, they're fluid, right? That's the purpose of grades, is that they should continue to grow and they should show growth. Another reason why mastery is more important than just compliance is this is a snapshot of graduates in 2014 who obtained a higher education credential 6 years after high school graduation, right? So again, because YMLA is a college-ready campus, this is our goal. Our goal is that 100% of our boys that graduate from YMLA will directly, immediately enroll into a post-secondary program, whether that is an armed forces academy, a junior college, or a 4-year university. Well, right now in San Antonio ISD, only 20% of high school of students that enroll in college after graduating finish. And then males is only 14%. We're an all boys school. So out of our class, our graduating class right now of 25, based on this statistic, only 3 of them are going to graduate in 6 years from post-secondary education. And a lot of that comes from students being underprepared. A lot of colleges and universities share that students come to them without having the writing skills necessary, without having the study skills necessary, without having the time management skills necessary, because they have just been given compliance grades. They've been turning in just enough so that it's not a 0, but not really being pushed to demonstrate actual mastery. So why does it matter, right? At least he's doing something. So like, he's at school, he's not on the streets, he's not, running wild. At least he's turning in some work. Why does it matter so much if it's mastery or not? Because using the term "at least" lowers the expectations of students and assumes they aren't capable of learning. If someone says "at least," they're assuming that they can't do really any more than that, and they're kind of grateful that they did that. That's absolutely not the expectation that we have here for the students at the Young Men's Leadership Academy. The expectation is that they can do their absolute best and that any support and resources that they need are available to them. Doing something puts the onus on the teacher to grade instead of the student to learn. So often I hear students say, well, I did your work for your class. Well, it's not my work. I've already graduated from high school. So it's not my work. If they don't do the work, nothing happens to the teacher. But if they don't do the work, then they don't have that practice. They're not getting that other knowledge, that additional knowledge. They're not growing in what it is that they can do. And then it puts it on the student to, it puts it on the teacher to get the grades in. Like, I'm doing this work so that you have something to grade, as opposed to I'm doing this work so that I can learn how to write a rhetorical essay, or so that I can understand the 3 branches of government. And the teacher is grading to give feedback so that that feedback can be used to do better on the next assignment. And so doing something is just like, I did the task so that you can have something to do. And we want to really move away from that. Without challenge, there can be no growth. I know that we all want our students to get straight A's, right? Like, who doesn't want that? That's fantastic. But if everything is so easy, that means that it's already something that they know how to do. And so they're not actually being challenged. They're not learning anything more than what they already know. Students are competing globally, not locally, for the best opportunities for themselves. Even here in San Antonio, Texas, even local universities like UTSA or Trinity or Our Lady of the Lake, those applications and those spots for admissions, it's not just students from San Antonio. I'm from Los Angeles, California. Students from California are applying. Students from Europe are applying. Students from Canada are applying. All of those spots are open to anybody who wants to attend that Institute of Higher Learning. And so to think and look around your classmates and say, oh, well, at least I'm doing better than most of them, very limits the scope of what it is that they're doing. And because we want them all to go to post-secondary school, we want them to be able to be a competitive applicant, someone that college and universities will look at and say, yes, this is going to be a great student. I would love to have them here. I would love for them to come to our school and be an alumni, because they can bring forth other people. So they're competing globally, not locally, for best opportunities. And so they must always do their best because what you're doing in your one classroom during 7th period may be at the bottom of what someone at another school is doing in their 7th period. And so you always want to do your best. We are a college readiness campus, period. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If that's not really a place that you see your student, then there's always other options. But the goal is that 100% of the boys that graduate from YMLA in the 12th grade will immediately in the fall be enrolled in a post-secondary education institution. And to be college ready, that requires self-efficacy, so the belief that they can do well. It requires autonomy, being able to advocate for themselves, ask questions, do work, and it requires tenacity, being able to push forth when things are challenging. And that goes back to compliance versus mastery. If we're just letting them, if they're just doing things for compliance, well, at least I did it, then none of those skills are being practiced or met. All right. Any questions so far?
No questions.
No questions?
Ms. Carpenter, this is Mona Lopez. I have one question because I totally understand what you're saying regarding just doing, like with Matthew. I think he's just checking off the boxes. You know what I mean? I would like to see him have more writing goals, like to improve himself as a writer. Is there any kind of goal setting that they can do to improve so that they can critique their own writing? And what I see is a lot of informal register in his writing, and I think that's part of that speech to text function that he does on the laptop.
Mm-hmm.
And so it causes that informal register when he's writing, and so it's very shallow. So I don't know what kind of goal setting or what is it that we can do here. I know there's another session about what we can do at home to improve their writing, but that's the one thing I'm noticing with his writing. I don't know about the other boys, but I just find that it's shallow, and I don't see him critiquing his own writing enough to see how he can improve it.
So that's one of the things that we're working on as a department, working on grading. And that's something that the teachers have to work on too, is moving away from compliance grading and more towards mastery grading. But with that comes, I hate to use this word because it has such a negative connotation, is negative consequences. It's not putting so much pressure on a quote unquote low grade, because a low grade doesn't always indicate a lack of effort or a misunderstanding. It means that as you've done it this time, this is the level that you're at. And then now that we know that, we can progress forward. That would also require a willingness to redo and the teacher allowing opportunities to redo the assignments based on whatever particular skill. So you said like the informal register, and I noticed that a lot too in the writing, even with the high school boys, is, they may write a written response based on the text, is going back and doing something simple as, you missed so many, there are no periods and commas in this. So you need to go back and fix that. This week, that's where we're focused on, is adding the correct punctuation so that your writing makes sense. The next time, it may be when we do a written assignment. So now that we've practiced that, next week, we're writing a different written assignment, but we've worked on punctuation. This time when we're writing it, the teachers may have them focus on using higher level vocabulary. So we're not using words like good, bad, like, I call those dead words. And so now where the students are using a dictionary and they're finding those synonyms in higher level vocabulary that's stronger and makes more emphasis. So it requires both work on the part of the teacher and the student. So the teacher allowing opportunities for redo, and then the student taking those opportunities for the redo and actually looking at the feedback given to them by the teacher and then making those changes, and then continuing to make those changes every single time that they write.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Carpenter.
I'll say one of the things that my son has done to improve his own writing is he likes stuff. That's a weird word to say. But he wanted a rabbit last year, and he was going to have knee surgery, and Dad and I were like, well, he's going to be at home. He's been at home virtual learning. I don't really want to get him a rabbit. I'm not really an animal person. And so we're like, all right, if you write a proposal for the rabbit, then we will read it and see if we can give you one. And he did. We did not help him with it. I think he went on like Google and looked up what a proposal looks like, but because it was something that he wanted and he was invested in, he took the interview. So maybe sometimes if they want something at home and they're asking, that would be a perfect opportunity, like write about it and tell me, and then we'll see if you get it or not.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Carpenter.
You're welcome. All right, so these are the top soft skills that employers love for any profession. Number one is time management. Often what happens in the essence of compliance of just getting it done, and I've noticed this, is that they kind of wait till the last minute to write before report cards, not everybody, but some, and then try to hurry up and turn things in. That's not good for them or the teacher. One, it puts all the pressure on the teacher to get the grades in before report cards are due. But what it also does is take away that opportunity for improvement. So if everything is getting turned in the Friday before grades are due, there's no opportunity to give you feedback on assignment number one so that you can see that to do better on assignment number two. And so sometimes teachers will take off grades, because it's late. And then if there are other additional issues with the assignment, those points are taken off, but they don't care. They're like, well, as long as it's a 70 or it's a 60 or it's not a 0. And so the time management of making sure that they're working in an organized, orderly fashion and turning in assignments in a timely manner so that they can get that feedback and get an opportunity to redo the assignment and look at the feedback and apply that. Problem solving, problem solving. So, asking the questions themselves, clicking around until they find it, making sure that they scroll all the way down, clicking on links, work ethic, which is basically just, not just trying to rush and get it done, but really taking the time to look at what it is that they're doing, double checking to make sure that it's correct, verifying that they've met all the components of the assignment. And then attention to detail, which goes back to the example that you gave. Is everything done the way that it's supposed to be done? Did I meet the criteria? Did I use evidence from the text? Did I add my numbers correctly? So those are the skills that employers love, that they're looking for in any profession. And if they continue to work towards mastery in their schoolwork now, they're going to naturally develop those skills to be positive and productive employees or business owners. So questions to ask your student about learning. I know that, we love to ask, like, how was your day today? Or sometimes we may ask, what did you do today? But we want to move away from that and ask them, what did you learn today? And sometimes they'll say, like, I didn't learn anything. That is not true unless it was a test day or a makeup work day. They're always learning something, but their answer should sound like information. So I learned about indigenous people in East Texas. We learned about dividing decimals. We learned about writing a topic sentence. So they should actually be telling you content or skills. The next question that you could ask them is, how do you know if you learned it? And so that is basically like, well, how do you even know if you have that information right or not? And so they'll say, I know that indigenous people in East Texas harvest it grain, or I know now that if I move the decimal to the right, that's how I divide. Or they may say, well, I know that a topic sentence has to have a claim. So that's the information. And then if they don't, if you do want to ask the do, so like, what did you actually do? That question would be, how did you learn it? So what is it that you did to show the teacher that you mastered this skill? And then that's where the assignment part comes in. That's when we're checking on Canvas. What's in Canvas and what's in Frontline is the doing, right? They had to write a rhetorical essay is the doing, but what they learned is rhetorical devices. And they know that they learned rhetorical devices because they read an article and identified the ethos that the author used to convince the, the reader to side with them. So I will also be posting a link to this slideshow in Class Dojo. I'm going to post the link to the sign in again in the chat. If you didn't sign in, make sure you sign in so that your student can get extra credit points. And that is it. And now I realize I talk too much. So any last questions before the next session starts?
No, ma'am, but thank you for those questions. I took a screenshot of them because now I know exactly what I'm going to ask. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Love it.
That was